I didn't set out with a kind of traditional maritime background. I entered in through operational analytics. My soul has always been in maritime. My father was a merchant navy captain. His advice was, you're going into a male-dominated environment, you are going to have to be tough, and you're going to have to be tougher than the men you're with. And he was absolutely right. Absolutely not. I got the role because I'm the best person for the job. I'm seen in the senior leadership team as a subject matter expert. People defer to me for answers. You move from providing answers to creating clarity. Leadership isn't just about knowing everything. It's about being able to align people, managing risk, and holding accountability. For me, it should be confidence, competence, and community.
Welcome to another episode of Women in Ports. I'm thrilled to welcome my guest today, all the way from Milford Haven, Alex Mensink-Britton, Business Development Partner for Svitzer. Welcome, Alex, and thank you for making this journey.
Thank you for having me.
So I think it'd be really good for our listeners to know what first drew you into the maritime and port environment.
Well, I didn't set out with a kind of traditional maritime background, and I entered in through operational analytics, but my kind of soul has always been in maritime. My father was a merchant navy captain. He sailed around the world with Shell, so ports and shipping has always been a part of my life. What drew me primarily is the complexity, really, because ports are a living system, and the commercial pressures, the safety critical decisions and the environmental scrutiny and also the workforce dynamics all intersect in real time. So that level of responsibility and impact really, really spoke to me.
And so what was it like stepping into operation port roles earlier on in your career?
It was really, really challenging. Ports can be still incredibly traditional and the operational environments are really fast-paced and incredibly direct. I quickly realised that credibility isn't just given, it's earned through consistency and things like preparation and being present and in the moment with people. So I learned to listen and understand what was going on in the operation, how everything interacts, and once I'd learned all of that, then learned to contribute.
Did your father give you any advice coming into maritime, or did you take a step back from seeking that?
No, I was incredibly close to my father. Yeah. His advice was, you're going into a male-dominated environment, you are going to have to be tough, and you're going to have to be tougher than the men you're with. And he was absolutely right. Yeah. He really was.
Do you think that's changed from your earlier days to now a little bit?
I think it has changed somewhat, but I think there is still an awful lot of pressure for women to perform. There's still that kind of traditional, in some respects, not so much in the Port of Milford Haven where I work, there's an awful lot of women in maritime there. But I think sometimes there's still that association with, well, we can all remember the times when women were secretaries and things like that. And there was still, when I first started, there was still that kind of attitude. However, as I said, through kind of learning your role, being prepared to be out there. And my first day with Svitzer, I got my PPE on and I went out on the waste barge and went out collecting rubbish, which is not the traditional operational analyst role. Yeah. But you've got to be prepared to get stuck in these environments.
And I guess learn the trades.
Absolutely. I don't like going into an environment that I don't understand myself. I like to be able to unpick things.
And so how did you build credibility as one of the few women?
It took a while initially, and learning what happens in all aspects of the port operation was vital to that. I don't think you can build credibility without understanding what happens within the port. So, as I said, my first day out on the waste barge. Within the first week, I was out on a 6-hour tug job in amongst the guys, down in the engine room, helping out with spanners, things like that. And driving a tug, which is great fun.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and it's, once people understand that you're prepared to learn and that you're prepared to get stuck in, then you start to build that credibility.
And so how did your early experience in operation analysis prepare you for leadership?
It taught me to see patterns. There's patterns in everything, financial, operational and behavioural. it gave me the confidence to make evidence-based decisions. And then when I moved into leadership roles, I already understood how things like performance, cost and risk all interlink.
And so just thinking about your analytical roles and managing large marine teams, what enabled your transition from that?
I'd say there's probably two main things. So there's the commercial literacy and then humility. So understanding budgets, things like KPIs and contracts meant that I could connect the operational activities to the business outcomes. And then the humility side I respected the experience of the crews while still leading them, because they understand how the operation works far better than I ever could.
And so think about a bit about your mindset. What mindset shift is required to move from that supporting operations to leading operations?
I think for me, you move from providing answers to creating clarity. Leadership isn't just about knowing everything. It's about being able to align people and managing risk and also holding accountability.
So thinking about just being one of the first few women joining, how has that changed now, as in the balance of women within your teams and your company now?
We now have a lot more females in leadership roles. Our previous managing director for Europe was a lady called Lisa Demond. She was fantastic. She was one of the first female. Well, she was chief commercial officer and then she moved on to managing director. But I'm seeing a bigger shift in women in senior leadership roles now, whereas you used to kind of see them more at the assistant level. When I'm seeing these subject matter experts and they are females.
And so how has that enabled you to recruit more female within the team? Has it made an impact, having more leadership visible? And how has that affected you in your role?
It absolutely affects the way we recruit. We've now got female tug masters. We've got females in the operation in general. They're working on the jetties. They are in leadership roles. It gives women things to aspire to. And it also demonstrates that a company like Svitzer is forward-thinking, progressive and supportive of these things. And I think that's incredibly important, to have visual female leadership.
And what would you say to somebody who says to you, well, you only got the role because you're a female?
Absolutely not. I got the role because I'm the best person for the job.
Yeah. And how would they measure that?
They would measure that by the fact that I'm seen in the port as a subject matter expert. I'm seen in the senior leadership team as a subject matter expert. People defer to me for answers. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think that's one of the things, though, right? When we look at an increase in female leadership, sometimes it can be perceived that you got it just because you're a female and ignore your other attributes, right?
Yes, and that is prevalent in all industries, I should imagine. But yes, there are certain attitudes that she just got that role because she's a female. And it's fantastic when you can sit in an operational delivery or when you're delivering a business plan and you know that there's somebody there who has decided you got that role because you are a female. And then you deliver the presentation, you deliver all of the information, the Q&A sessions, there is nobody else talking and you can just see them sat there with their mouth open. It's fantastic.
That's satisfying.
Incredibly so.
And too right. So just thinking about your day-to-day life, what does operational leadership in the port involve day-to-day?
There is no 2 days that are the same. Yeah. It's constant, balancing safety and things like weather, budgets, union relationships as well. We are a heavily unionised organisation, as well as the customer expectations. On any given Tuesday, you might be managing a vessel issue or an audit or a commercial negotiation or even workforce planning and the challenges associated with that all at the same time.
So how do you manage to balance safety, people management and commercial performance?
Well, firstly, safety is non-negotiable. That is the primary. Everybody comes to work wanting to go home safely. Safety is the primary objective. commercial performance improves when the systems are stable and people feel supported and are supported. And then I don't believe that financial discipline is separate from the operations. It's embedded in every decision that we make.
And looking at your background, especially your financial background, why is financial literacy so important for women aspiring to senior port roles?
Because the influence increases when you understand the numbers. If you can link the operational decisions to things like margin, EBITDA, and the risk exposure, you move from a participant to the decision maker.
What was some of the challenges when you were understanding better financial literacy?
It was getting individuals to understand the operational impact of their decisions, how that affected things like the P&L and what that led to, and what happens when cost control is out of the window. You cannot continue to grow an organisation if you haven't got the cost control.
Yeah. And so when we're looking at stakeholder management and just stakeholders, in which includes your trade unions, what role does that play in effective leadership?
In ports, especially in the operation I work in, unions are partners in our stability. Key for me is transparent communication and early engagement. It helps to reduce conflict and it increases respect, which builds resilience in the operation. And that's the same when we think about external stakeholders as well. By clear communication, you build that trust and you get that operational resilience throughout the organisation.
What would you say to somebody aspiring into a port role? Not necessarily operational, could be a number of port roles, trying to build trust with stakeholders. What are some of the tips that you can give to them on how to build trust?
Be authentic, be open, be honest, and be accountable for your decisions. If you make a mistake, own it, absolutely.
Have you made many mistakes?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Constantly I make mistakes, but if you don't make mistakes, you don't learn.
Yeah. And so how do you see the role of towage and marine services evolving within UK ports?
It's becoming so much more data-driven and it's a lot more scrutinised. Customers and crew expect transparency, performance metrics, accountability and environmental responsibility. There's also pressure to improve efficiency without compromising safety. I think the future is about smarter integration between operations, commercial decision making and the digital insight. It's not just about moving vessels, it's about providing value-added insights as well.
And what's some of the skills that are vital for that success?
That's a really good question. Improving efficiency, I think environmental understanding is a core skill. I think that there's a lot to be said for things like financial acumen. We have spent a lot of time, understandably so, recruiting primarily seafarers.
Yeah.
Seafarers don't spend a lot of time delving into numbers. They don't necessarily feel always that there's a need for it. However, if they're supported in that, then they can make better operational decisions. And environmental responsibility, it's education, 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 and that starts when they're my daughter's age.
Yeah. And just thinking about capability, what do you think some of the capability gaps are in maritime today? And not just the UK, but just maybe even globally. Where do you see the gaps?
There's two things. I've already mentioned things like confidence with financials, commercial literacy within operational leadership. If we don't have confidence in the financials, it limits progression. And the second is digital fluency. Understanding how to use the information that we've got and use it strategically, not just report a dashboard and go, oh, look, we've achieved a KPI, but understanding what's led to that KPI and how to drill into it. I think we need leaders who are equally comfortable with things like safety briefings and conversations about EBITDA.
But then what do you do when there's a priority that you think is a skill that should be prioritised over maybe something else that somebody sees less important? How do you deal with that conflict? especially within your teams, being the leader, what would you do in those scenarios?
I would be talking to the individuals about where they think the priorities are, why they've reached that decision. And, sometimes I'm wrong and I'm prepared to be wrong.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's about understanding their frame of reference and giving them the opportunity to understand mine as well. And invariably you meet in the middle and give them a little bit of education about what your priorities are and why they are the way they are. But you also get that information from them.
Yeah. And so communication seems quite a big theme.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so looking at digitalisation, what opportunities do digitalisation and smarter operational data create for the next generation of leaders?
They are huge. Data allows us to forecast things like demand, optimise tug deployment and improve things like maintenance cycles. And they also help us strengthen risk controls. More importantly, though, it allows leaders to make proactive decisions rather than reactive ones. I think historically there's been an awful lot of firefighting in the maritime industry, and data allows us to step away from the crisis and look at things holistically. For the next generation, digital competence is going to be as important as seamanship and knowledge in that area as well.
I think one of the things that in today's era, when we look at digital, there seems to be very different definitions of what digital means. What does digital mean for you?
Digital to me is a tool. It's a toolkit that allows you to put in information that's important to the operation and get out analysis that you can then use to make informed decisions. I don't necessarily feel it's things like recording stuff, TikTok. I know that's digital in and of itself, but I think when you look at digital in an operational environment, it's as important to put in the correct information and understand the information that you're inputting to get out high quality decisions.
And just thinking about leadership behaviours, what leadership behaviours have been most critical in your career progression?
Consistency, calmness under pressure, and financial discipline, but most importantly, accountability, owning your outcomes, not deflecting away from them. People follow leaders who are steady and fair, and as I've said, I have made mistakes, everybody has, and I think by being authentic and owning the fact that you've made mistakes allows people to feel safe, and it allows you to be more trusted.
So how do you stay resilient in high-pressured environments, especially when it's safety critical?
I tend to focus on processes and priorities. In safety critical environments, you can't panic. You've got to rely on structured systems, clear communication, and proportionate decision making. I also believe resilience comes from preparation, knowing your numbers, your risks, and your people.
What advice would you give to women stepping into operational roles?
Don't wait until you feel ready. You'll never feel ready. Build competence, not confidence. Confidence follows competence. Learn the commercial side early and understand that influence comes from credibility and delivery, not volume.
And is there any tips that you can give to somebody when they want to network with those operational environments?
Throw yourself in at the deep end, get stuck in. You are not going to feel comfortable initially. Nobody ever does. And imposter syndrome is perfectly normal. Everybody feels like they're an imposter.
Has mentorship, whether it's formal or informal, had any impact in your career?
It's been crucial. Sometimes it's not just one person, it's observing different leadership styles and learnings that work really well. There's also things like sponsorship, people advocating for you in rooms that you're not in. I think that's one of the most important things. I have a brilliant port manager who advocates for myself and the team, even when we're not there. And that is one of the most vital things, I think, in mentorship.
And so we touched about sponsorship, about speaking up for you when you're not in the room. Now, just think about the organisations as a whole. How can organisations better support accelerating female leadership in operational roles?
I think for me, there's three main areas: transparent progression pathways, and exposure to operational command early. As I said, you're never going to feel ready.
Yeah.
And then financial and commercial training for operational staff. I think we need to actively place women in stretch roles and not just support roles as well.
And just thinking about your career and just the breadth of work that you've done, what's been one of your challenges?
My challenges have been overcoming imposter syndrome. I know I've mentioned it before, but when you are one of the few females seen as a subject matter expert, you sit there and you think, why me?
Yeah.
And overcoming that little person on your shoulder going, you're not good enough for this, is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And you just have to jump in with both feet and go, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And what about those women who have imposter syndrome and can't make that leap of that confidence? But what advice would you give to them, to some practical tips that they can adopt to overcome it?
Practice builds confidence. As much as none of us like staring at ourselves in the mirror, I think talking through your thought processes in a safe environment, so in front of the mirror or recording yourself. One of the tips I was given quite early on is record yourself speaking.
Yeah.
Because you are your best advocate and you are your worst critic, and seeing yourself on camera gives you far more insight into how you come across.
And just thinking about the being in front of an audience, what advice would you give to women who have been asked to speak in front of audiences, speak at panels, in building confidence?
The more you do it, the more confident you will get, but you will always have self-doubt. You are there for a reason. People have asked you to speak at this event because they trust your opinion and they want to hear what you've got to say. So absolutely speak up, be proud about everything that you've achieved. It is really difficult to stand there and go, I'm really good at what I do and you should listen to me. However, that is the reason that you've been asked to be on that panel, because you're really good.
Yeah.
So have a moment, absolutely, before you go on. But when you step into that limelight, you are there for a reason, and it is a really good reason.
Yeah. So I'm assuming, the assumption that I'm making right now, you love Maritime.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So it's a career that you would encourage others to join.
I would, 100%.
So what advice would you give to women joining Maritime? Not necessarily operation, but Maritime.
It's a demanding sector. It really is. And it's incredibly rewarding. Be prepared to work hard, understand the detail, and build relationships at every level. It's not linear, and that is a massive strength.
Yeah. And the fact that it's not linear, how do you think the industry adapts to flexibility?
It's brilliant for flexibility. You can, I've gone from being an operational analyst to being a people leader to being in a commercially driven role. If I'd have looked at myself when I was sort of 21, 22, when I first joined Svitzer, I would never have imagined that I am where I am today. I would have probably laughed if you told me that I would lead people and that I would lead commercial-based decisions. But here I am. The maritime sector gives you massive opportunities in areas that you never expected it.
I always say that once you, I fell into it by mistake, but once you fall into it, you never want to leave.
No, absolutely not.
So what was one of the lessons that you wish you had learnt earlier on in your career? If you can go back and you're like, this is the lesson I wish I had known earlier. I mean, just one, right?
Just one, goodness me. Operational excellence alone isn't enough. You've got to connect it with performance. So you can be the best that you can be, but if you can't make it stick in the commercial setting, then you really need to take a step back, look at things, redesign the process, and make sure that you've got that acumen behind you as well.
Yeah. Fantastic. And finally, think about women in ports. In 3 words, what should it be?
For me, it should be confidence, competence, and community.
Confidence, competence, and community.
Absolutely.
The 3 Cs.
3 Cs. Got to love the alliteration.
Love it. Confidence, competence, and community. Love it. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I wish you a safe journey back to Wales. So this is another episode of Women in Ports, and we're going to conclude with Alex's words, the 3 Cs: be competent, be confident, and build community.